For NYup and Syracuse.com, I am Matt Parrino, and I'm joined right now by Sal Capaccio from WGR 550 and the sideline reporter for the Buffalo Bills. Sal, thank you so much for joining me.
Anytime, buddy. Appreciate it.
So this is seventh day we've been out here for practice. They were in shells today, no pads, but I still think some interesting takeaways. Let's start with your top one. What kind of stood out to you the most about practice today?
Well, I think it's overall that there is separation out the wide receiver group. I mean, I think there's a clear top six, and that top six is basically Brown and Beasley. They're number 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think Zay Jones is number 3, and then right after him is Robert Foster, Andre Roberts, and Ray McLeod. Ray McLeod has clearly jumped into the top 6. What stood out to me today was how many reps he was getting with the number 1 group. After that, Isaiah McKenzie's a little behind, but he is behind, I think, and then you have a drop off to the rest.
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest questions that I get on social media, I'm sure you get it as well, what's a David Sills update? What's a Duke Williams update? I mean, to be honest with you, for the most part, I haven't really noticed them a ton. Duke Williams had 2 touchdowns today out there and some red zone work, but they both have an uphill climb to make this team.
No doubt. I would put it this way. I think David Sills, Cam Phillips, and Nick Easley are fighting for 1, maybe 2 practice squad spots. What about Duke Williams, you say? What about Victor Bolden Jr. say? Well, I don't think those are guys you're going to put investment into trying to develop for a year. They've been in this league. I mean, this is the practice squad is for guys who are young that you need a year maybe to develop. And I think Sills and Easley really fit into that group. And Cam Phillips has impressed me. And it'd be tough to move on from him and see him go somewhere else and maybe be on another team's roster at some point. But I agree, Duke Williams, he's just not on the field enough. He's gonna have an opportunity though. Here's what's gonna happen. Duke Williams going against Carolina in the preseason games, that's when he has to show up. Otherwise, he's on the outside looking in, just like David Sills is.
A lot of veterans had the day off today, mostly on the defensive side of the ball. Quinton Spain nursing a little bit of an injury, but the shuffle continues on the offensive line. Today, what stood out to me the most was a lot of time for Ty Nsekhe at left tackle, kind of rotating at the right spot, in with Deion Dawkins at the left spot. I think that there might potentially still be a competition at that spot.
Yeah, I think Ty Nsekhe has earned a few more reps here, I guess, so to speak, by seeing him out there on the right side, in for Cody Ford. And today was interesting. Again, he was kind of the first guy out there, and then they sprinkled Ford in, and now he moves over to the left side. Not a competition with Deion Dawkins, but I do think there's a competition for the swing tackle spot between Nsekhe and Adrian Waddle, because do you really keep both of them if they're both going to be swing tackles? I think that's an interesting dynamic right there. The question is, can you afford to keep 4 tackles, basically? Now, he does have some position flexibility. Cody Ford does as well, but I agree with you. That stood out to me as well. Now, perspective for you, like you just said, they are doing some shuffling. There are guys now playing some spots where really what they're trying to do is just make sure everybody kind of knows what to do, because they are down guys and they want to make sure in a pinch they can use guys in different areas.
Adrian Waddle obviously brings over some championship pedigree from New England, but I'd say at this stage he's kind of behind Ty Nsekhe quite a bit. Now they gave Ty Nsekhe a much different contract, a contract that kind of implies that he is going to have contributions on this team, and I think Waddle still has work to do.
Yeah, I think, to me, there's no doubt Ty Nsekhe makes this roster. The question is if he starts or if he's the swing man and a backup. I don't know if Adrian Waddle's in that boat. I think as of right now, I'd probably put him on. I think you keep Adrian Waddle on this roster as of right now, but I could see a scenario where they feel they need another runner, another number at running back, or another number at receiver, or someplace on the roster where they have to make a tough decision. And that's not an indictment on Adrian Waddle. I just think it's a numbers game at that point.
If you're looking in the defensive backfield, you're talking about, between the 3, Trey White, Micah Hyde, and Jordan Poyer, some of the best 3 in the league right there. But looky at Kurt Coleman, just involved in the situation after signing as a free agent when Raphael Bush announced his retirement ahead of camp. And you could already see the confidence level that this coaching staff has in Kurt Coleman. They're putting him out there with Jordan Poyer, with Micah Hyde nursing some injuries.
No doubt he's the third safety. I mean, right now he is the third safety. Now I will say, if Poyer's out, maybe Coleman's not the first man in. Maybe it's someone else based on what they want to do with their 2 safeties. But when you're talking about what Micah Hyde brings and saying we need a guy that's his backup to be the number 3 guy, it is Kurt Coleman. And the first day he was out here, he was directing traffic. He was telling guys where to line up. And that confidence that you have, that we can just plug this guy in and we're not going to really lose much of a step as far as knowing our system. I talked with Jordan Poyer about this, and he said, we already knew we had depth. We bring in Kurt Coleman, we have more depth. But I think there's going to be some good football players who don't make this roster, including in the secondary. Dean Marlowe, I think, is the 4th safety right now, and he's been playing a lot back there. But I could see a scenario where he doesn't make it, because what do you do with Joquan Johnson? I mean, he is a guy that you drafted. He is a guy that you want on this roster, I would think, for bringing some of the youth to that secondary. So there's a lot of decisions to be made back there.
It's all relative. It all is related. You talk about the linebacker position. Maurice Alexander is a guy, former safety, converted to linebacker, plays special teams, can almost play that slot nickel role. But Saran Neal, they have so many high hopes for him in that role, as well as a backup to Taron Johnson. And that goes into, what do you want to do with Voshon Joseph?
Right.
He's a 5th-round draft pick. You almost have to keep him on this roster. The athleticism and the potential to rush the quarterback, which is somewhere that Sean McDermott has said they want to be better at this year. I think that there's so many problems, and here's the kicker. We talked about this over on the sidelines. Today, Heath Farwell had his press conference. I asked him, who has stood out to you in special teams? Obviously, you knew Lorenzo Alexander coming in here. He said Patrick DeMarco, and it's funny, most fans are hoping that the Bills move on from him because there's so much talent at other rooms. They don't want a roster spot for a fullback. But I think you better get used to the idea of him being on this team.
Yeah, Patrick DeMarco is going to be on the 53-man roster, not only because of what he brings to special teams, but if you're out here watching, he's a regular on the field.
Yes.
He's on the field. He lines up at fullback. He splits out as a guy in the slot, basically, as a fullback who's split out like a tight end, and then he moves like an H-back, and he comes in and he blocks. He is an important part of this roster. To go back to your Voshon Joseph point, I agree. Like, look, this was a big jump for this kid, to get into that linebacker situation, see where he can fit in. And now we talked about when he was drafted that he was kind of a boom or bust type player. We haven't seen the boom yet. We just haven't seen him making plays and making us say, hey, that's a guy you need to keep. So maybe you keep him on the roster just because you develop him. Maybe you can see him through the practice squad. But right now, there is clearly a starting 3 linebackers, Edmonds Milano, Lorenzo Alexander, and behind them, there's a clear 3. Corey Thompson, Julian Stanford, and Maurice Alexander, like you just pointed out. Where does that leave Deion Lacey? You can't just keep guys just for special teams, considering the way the roster is constructed right now.
Right. One more thing before we get out of here. Sal Sports, at Sal Sports on Twitter. Go give him a follow. WGR 550. He's their Bills guy. Thank you so much for joining me. But I want to talk about Josh Allen real quick before we get out of here. A little bit of an up and down day today. There were some accuracy issues, but still, he is still converting in the short game. There was a lot of, he referenced the play with Andre Roberts, just a simple 4-yard play where he presented an opportunity, Josh put it out there to him, he made the play, got in front of the will linebacker, made the touchdown. That's so important, and I think that throughout the whole body of work, the 7 days of camp so far, I think he is leaps and bounds ahead of where he was in terms of the easy stuff compared to last season.
I thought he had a good day underneath today. I thought he had a good day in the red zone on the underneath stuff. There was one play in particular that stood out to me, and I was standing in the back of the end zone. Josh had the ball, Matt, and he was scanning right, and it just took a while. And at the last thing, he just looked left and dumped it to Cole Beasley, and I think Beasley would have scored. It would have been close, and I thought to myself, that's the kind of play he needs. That's what he's got to do. He didn't just find Cole Beasley when he needed to. He put it on the money to Cole Beasley in the slot. Those are the kinds of things you need. But I like the day he had underneath and short. There were some ones he wants back, as usual. There was also some batted balls. I think that's becoming a bit of a story that the last couple of days, too many batted balls at the line of scrimmage.
You can find all of his work over at WGR550.com, at Sal Sports. I'm at Matt Parrino, and as always, for all your Bills content, keep it locked on the NYup.Syracuse.com. All right, buddy. Thanks, brother.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
No problemo. You head back?